of our exhibition is based on a humanistic celebration of libraries from the 13th and 14th centuries onwards. The idea was that a study, a library, what was called a bibliotheca filled with books, would reach out and commune with voices of the past.
All of the books in the exhibition come from the Stephen O. Murray and Keelung Hong special collections at MSU Libraries, and they are just the tip of the iceberg of what we have in this collection. These materials and many, many others are available to anybody, general public, doesn't have to be associated with MSU at all, to consult in our reading room on the main floor of the library.
The background of these texts is they were both very important compilations of travel writing. Many people actually traveled, merchants, geographers, some slave traders, emissaries, ambassadors. They were all a part of this larger pull towards what they call discovery, which generated a movement of globalization, which is with us till today. Richard Hakluyt was a geographer, cleric, who also was known as editor, translator, and so forth. He wrote it to honor his nation, basically, he said, for sort of patriotic reasons and with kind of proto-colonial underpinnings. And the volume that we have on display here is the 1598 volume. It spans 2,000 pages, more than 200 voyages. Ships of East India Company would carry principal navigations. It was their source of knowledge. So he was a kind of a mover and shaker plus an explorer. Today, this collection is considered a founding text of English national identity and England's imperial ambitions. Purkis, who has followed in kind of his footsteps, I think left us even a bigger monumental source of knowledge, especially of non-Western cultures. Purkis was very influenced by Hakluyt's papers. His was a 4-volume folio that took more than 3 years to print, and at the time of his publication was the largest book ever going through an English press. He expanded on Hakluyt's work. One such notable example in Purkis is literally the first English translation of excerpts from the Quran. Principal Navigations and Purkis's Pilgrims, they open a window onto how the world appeared to people in England from 1600 onwards.
Shakespeare's Fourth Folio, a book that we have from 1685, continuation of all of the works that they had in the Third Folio, which had 7 additional plays, only one of which has been attributed to Shakespeare. So Shakespeare was obviously quite popular. The name was big, so some people wanted to attribute his name to whatever they could. First of all, it's been 20 years since any of the collected works of Shakespeare had been released. It was very popular. It led to also the canonization of Shakespeare at a time when we start to see the kind of emergence of the British Empire. So if you think about the connection between having this popular epitome of British culture that we tend to think of as Shakespeare, becoming canonized in essence at a time when the British Empire was being established, you start to see the connection between the elements of cultural imperialism, spreading the notion of British culture throughout the world.
Richard Knowles' The General History of the Turks was published in London in 1603. This massive folio, nearly 1,200 pages long, was the first full English history of the Ottoman Empire, which at the time was the most powerful empire in Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Our author, Richard Knowles, was an Oxford graduate who spent most of his life as a schoolmaster in Sandwich, a small town in Kent. He stitches together a narrative divided into 13 books, each of which details the life and reign of an Ottoman sultan. Knowles' history stands out as the first comprehensive account in English. For over a century, it was widely read and reprinted as the standard reference for anyone curious about the Ottomans or Turkish people. What made Knowles' work so influential was not just its scale, but its style. A vivid blend of fear and fascination. That combination of condemnation and admiration also reflects England's own ambivalence, trading with the Ottomans while preaching Christian solidarity against Islam. So when we opened this heavy folio as a part of the Europe and Empires of the East exhibition, we see not just a historical English account of the Ottomans, but a book that embodies encounter and exchange. The General History of the Turks transmitted Ottoman voices into English print.
This book was written by John Baptist Chardin. He was born in late 17th century. He was a French-born English writer, historian, and traveler. He traveled extensively throughout the Near East. His travelogues are one of the most important sources for the study of the early modern Near East. The book that we have in the collection is specifically focused on his travels through Persia. Persia at that time was under the rule of the Safavid Empire, one of this early modern gunpowder Muslim empires of the time. Chardin had the privilege of traveling to the domains of the Safavids in mid to late 17th century. It's important to see how he perceived the world from his own view in the 17th century, which is definitely different than what we see later in the 18th and 19th century Orientalist accounts of the period, coming from a different structure of power.
So the book we have here is Blau's Atlas. Johannes Blau was a Dutch engraver and mapmaker in the mid-17th century. He produced a very large set of books. It's 11 volumes in the original and the Latin version, called his Atlas Major, the Great Atlas. And what we have here at MSU is one of the 12-volume French translation that was made a year after. The page we have open is the view of Malta, and the island of Malta is the flashpoint, if you will, between the Islamicate world and Christian Europe. It sits right in the middle of the Mediterranean, right where the shipping lanes from Eastern Mediterranean to Western Mediterranean converge, and it is the home of the Knights of Malta. Basically see it as their job to patrol the Mediterranean and to protect Christian shipping from the depredations of what they would say are Muslim pirates who come and attack them. And so you can see a Christian soldier who's got a big old cross on his chest, and you have a Muslim warrior sort of facing off against each other. It really shows us something of how the Mediterranean was conceived of as this battleground, if you will, between Islam and Christianity in the mid-17th century. This is a book that I often use in my teaching here at MSU because it's such a beautiful example of the wonderful things we have in our collections and which our generous patrons have helped us to acquire over the years.
The book, it's a huge amount of information. You should think about the book as this repository of all the available information. So everything that the European knew about Asia is in this book. Lincoln was able to amass an incredible amount of information while he was in India for nearly 6 years. It analyzes how the Portuguese Empire operated in Asia. But it had a huge impact on two other empires, the English and the Dutch. Originally, the idea for the book was a commission from King of Spain and Portugal, who wanted to know exactly what was happening in his empire in Asia and asked to gather all sorts of information about the Portuguese Empire in Asia. It's a book about exposing the secrets of the Portuguese to help the Dutch to form their empire. It interconnects three empires in a way. If you're an historian, it is a way to understand how these empires were formed and how another empire influenced the formation of these two other empires. It provides people who go to the exhibition to have an experience of being on the shoes of an early modern individual and having these books all together to see how the world was and the different ways how the world was being interpreted. Lincoln connects directly with Hakluyt's work. The two should be together. One influenced the other, and it's very interesting to have those here.
The books in this exhibition are beautiful. They are complicated, they're fascinating, they're weighted with all kinds of meaning, and what Jotz and I are trying to do in our exhibition is to show that no book is neutral in its agenda, but also show how it could have been used by various groups of people throughout history, whether they are reacting to contemporary discoveries and imperialist efforts being made in their home country, or they are scholars trying to understand history that has come before decades, centuries later.
Books come to me from every century and every land. Sometimes they sing for me, some tell me of the mysteries of nature, some give me counsel for life and death, some teach me to know myself.